This is piece 245, Old Man's Cloth by El Anatsui, who is from Ghana and Nigeria. It's a metal cloth. Its form is it's 16 feet by 17 feet. It's big. And it is comprised of metal caps from liquor bottles, not seals so much, but caps. And the liquor bottles we're talking about mostly are whiskey, gin, and rum. And they are ones that he has found in Nigeria at a liquor distillery. They are bent and then sewn together with recycled copper wire, and they resemble Nigerian cloth patterns called kente cloth. You can see there are squares here, right? Each of them is a square, and the squares are comprised of about 200 pieces of this metal. Here is kente cloth being worn by people in Africa, and here is a vision or a visual of the geometric forms of the kente cloth. He creates these masterpieces on the floor where he can lay them out, and he has up to 16 assistants working with him in his workshop. Also about form, these are hung differently at each museum. It's the museum curator who hangs these pieces, and they contort and manipulate them when they're hung. They're not intended to just be hung flat. And El Anatsui would prefer that the curator bend them at their own whim. And so you see this is the same old man's cloth, but this one is bent more vertically. I think this is in Florida, and this one is bent more horizontally. And so finally in form, we have this question to ponder a bit. Is this a sculpture or is this an African craft? So, right, that resembles kente cloth. Here, one of the El Anatsui pieces is hanging in the gallery for modern sculpture. But here, another acquisition by the Met it was hung and is displayed in the African and Pacific art collection. So there's two possible takes, both of them perhaps correct, about how this art should be categorized or perceived. And here's one hanging in the British Museum, and a close-up of that one. Content. West Africa during the 14th century was the producer of about 2/3 of the world's gold. And when it was taken over by the British in the 1800s, late 1800s, this area of the world for them was called the Gold Coast because it still produced and still does today produce gold. So no surprise then that gold is one of the main colors in much of his art, as it is here. So context for his piece is just huge. We can discuss his art based on this notion of globalism, colonial cash crops like sugar that's turned into rum, the triangle trade, which involved slavery and the movement of people from Africa into the cash crop industry in the Americas. Anatsui also likes to address environmental degradation, global consumerism, and modern alcohol consumption. So all of these topics can be addressed in this art. So looking at the historical view, the triangle trade, which includes slavery, and we see the diaspora of African people from this continent on the West Coast, and here's present day Nigeria, into Brazil, into the Caribbean, and then into North America to be the labor force to create cash crops like sugar. Um, and then that sugar is taken, and you can see here in this triangle trade diagram, it's taken and made into rum. And then ultimately, they don't show it in this particular triangle trade, which I find interesting, but it is shipped into Africa as a commodity to exchange for people. So Anatsui is addressing that. And this particular piece, which is found in the Brooklyn Museum, which I think we should just go see right now, this is from Liquor Headmaster. Headmaster is a variety of rum. And so I think this is just most compelling. Tragic. Okay, so Anatsui is also addressing alcohol consumption in Nigeria, and this is Nigeria. And you can see on this chart, it certainly is not the most, the largest consumer of alcohol in the world per capita, but it is in a scary area here. So this piece is the one being, it's a Dusasa II in the Metropolitan Museum of Art in the sculpture gallery, and it is absolutely stunning. You can see all of that gold. A reminder here that he's also reusing materials, so he is commenting on the environmental degradation from our world trade and our world consumption and our consumerism. He is reusing these materials to create this art and these messages. And this, up close, you can see these are, I don't know, are these bottle caps? These look like spirals of copper, or I'm not sure what they are, but copper wire definitely being used to combine these pieces. All right, El Anatsui addressing a lot of global topics, tying it to history and creating sculpture and artifacts that resemble African African art, African kente cloth.